All right, guys, I want to welcome you to the Do Work Podcast. This is day 13. Yes, it is day 13 of 31 days of motivation and mindfulness. And today we are talking about suffering and sacrifice. So if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. Go to divariches.com, subscribe to our newsletter. You can pick up this podcast everywhere: Apple, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get and stream your podcast. Go there, support me, and make sure to share this information. All right, so let's get into it. Let's talk about suffering and sacrifice. So recently, one of my Do Work clients asked me a question. He said to me, he goes, "Diva, you don't sleep. I never see you sleep, or I never see you rest. You're always on the go. How do you do this?" And I pretty much told him this. I am huge on sacrifice, because the thing is this: the things that I want out of this life, out of my career, out of my business, require a certain amount of work and dedication. So I am more than willing to sacrifice the now. I'm willing to sacrifice going out. I'm willing to sacrifice vacations. I'm willing to sacrifice all these things for what I want to build in the future. So sometimes that means Diva's not sleeping for a few days. Sometimes that means I may miss other opportunities, but I have to sacrifice the now for what I want in the future. And a lot of people don't ever want to make the sacrifice of the now, because what you want now is so tempting. You want it, you need it right now. But what you have to do is sacrifice that for the long game. So then when you finally start to sacrifice, it hurts, because you want what you want. You want it now. And that's where the suffering kicks in. If you can maintain and work through the suffering, the sacrifice then becomes worth it. It becomes worth it. So when people see me and they say, "Diva, you've been on the road all year. Diva, aren't you tired?" Yes, I'm tired. Yes, I've been on the road all year, but that is a sacrifice I'm making. Yes, I am suffering. I'm not getting as much sleep as I like. I'm working my ass off because I'm trying to build something. A lot of people want to build these things without sacrificing things, giving things up, or suffering, going through stress. Please understand, I am a huge fan of work-life balance. So before y'all get on here and be like, "Girl, you need to take better care of yourself," you're exactly right. And there's going to be a time for that, but it's not why I'm building. And that's the difference. When you look at the titans, when you look at the people who have built monumental things, work-life balance came later. I always say, you win after you've built. You can't win and be, the successes happen later, not in the building stages. So when it comes to sacrifice, the more you can sacrifice in the beginning, when you're working on your finances, your relationships, your business, the more you sacrifice to get to whatever it is you want, the better it'll be and the quicker you'll get it. But if you're afraid of the suffering, if you're afraid of how tired you're going to be, how you're going to feel, how lonely you might be, how many parties you might miss, how many times you may not get to go out and have drinks with your friend, then you're not going to reach your end goal. Why? Because you're not willing to sacrifice a thing, and you're more concerned about the suffering. And you know, we live in a generation of FOMO. And for those of you who don't know what FOMO is, that's fear of missing out. People are scrolling through social, wishing they were at a party, wishing they were at this dinner, wishing they were at a function or convention. Sometimes those are things you got to sacrifice to work on and build you. So sacrifice is the predecessor to that suffering. Because once you give it up, you're giving it up for a greater purpose. You're giving it up for your greater good. And then the real work starts. You got to suffer. You got to miss out. You got to be uncomfortable. And that comes in many forms. But sacrifice and suffering go hand in hand. And if you're not willing to do them both, you can't grow. I have yet to meet an entrepreneur that has not done both. And if you are one, hey, hit me up. I would love to have you on so we can have a discussion. Like, what did you do that required no sacrifice and no suffering? Like, put me on. All right. So sacrifice and suffering go hand in hand. They are a necessity. This doesn't mean they're a negative thing either. They're just part of the process. People think growth is all good and growth is all happy and progress is all, like sunshine and rainbows, and it's not. Growth is uncomfortable. Growth is gritty. Growth is dirty. Growth is sad sometimes. Growth is exhausting. It's all these things. But the beauty of growth is whether you're growing up or out, wherever your direction is, it gets you closer to where you want to be. So I tell people all the time when they come to me and ask me about anything, if you're not willing to sacrifice and you're not willing to suffer, I don't even know why we're having a conversation. I'm wasting my breath because you're not going to do what needs to be done. And the people who win day in and day out do this daily. The greats do this daily. They do what needs to be done. They sacrifice, they give up things they want right now for what they want to build in the future. So when we really dive into this 31 days of motivation and mindfulness, this is the basis of it. Each day I'm giving you something different to consider and think about. But as you embark on your journey of growth in whatever it is, you're going to need to sacrifice some things. And those sacrifices are probably going to feel like suffering just because what you sacrifice is something you want so bad right now. You have to be willing to do the work. I say it all the time, day in and day out. You have to be willing to do the work. What is the work? The work is sacrifice and suffering. And if you're not willing to do that, you put yourself at a disadvantage because somebody out there is getting a little less sleep to get their report done. And I'm not talking about unorganized people. I'm talking about people who really want to push, people who want to get one step ahead, who want to make that extra sell. I'm talking about those people. I'm talking about the go-getters. I'm talking about the hustlers. I'm talking about the grind. I'm talking about those people. I'm talking about the guy who's up to 4 a.m. working on software programming because he knows he's right there and he wants to get it right. So he's willing to give up that sleep for the greater good, for what he's building, for what he sees in the future. You got to be willing to sacrifice. You got to be willing to sacrifice, and you got to be willing to suffer. Without those two, you cannot grow. There is no growth. It won't work. And again, if you're one of these magical people who's never had to sacrifice or suffer, hit me up. Love to talk to you. This is 31 days of motivation and mindfulness. This is your moment, guys. This is your wake-up call. This is your I can go just a little bit harder. This is your I can go just a little bit further. Yes, I believe in work-life balance, but not while you're building. Not while you're building. I'm sorry. It slows the process down. Get where you got to go and then balance it out. Because if you don't do it while it's hot, while you can do it, you're going to lose it. Suffer and sacrifice, necessary for growth, change, and progress. They go hand in hand. This is 31 days of motivation and mindfulness. I am Diva. Make sure to subscribe to my newsletter. Go over to divariches.com. Also, make sure to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube as I drop episodes daily on this podcast. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Have an amazing day. Remember, nothing changes unless you do, family. Nothing changes unless you sacrifice, suffer, and do the work.